Welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of the College Football Junkies. We have made it. It is a new college football season. This is my co-host Montana to my left. Man, long wait. Long wait. We are finally here. Week 0 of college football season is upon us. We got Iowa State, Kansas State kicking off the college football season in just under 2 hours from now. And I couldn't be more excited. I think this is going to be one of the more unpredictable college football seasons that we've had in a while. Sports Maniac, we appreciate the welcome. We're glad to be back, excited for a new college football season. Let's kick things off and start off with game number 1 of the season. It's the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. It is Farmageddon. Iowa State, Kansas State. Iowa State's ranked number 22, respectively. Kansas State ranked number 17, respectively. This should be a pretty interesting matchup in terms of, Iowa State's offense. Iowa State's offense was pretty good for the most part last year. They are replacing their wide receiver core. Jalen Knoll is the key receiver that they're missing this year. But they've got a couple of other guys that could step up. Give me your early thoughts, Montana, on what you think could happen in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic today.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good way to, first of all, a good first game of the season. I think we've seen a lot of good first games and first week zeros. Week 0 is important because it really sets the tone a lot of the time. And sometimes it does have pretty important implications for certain teams, whether they win or lose games. This is an example of that. You have two ranked teams, two teams that are really, to me, on the cusp of making that playoff, both with their talent and skill and also their ranking. So I think it's going to be a good one. I'm going to pull Pat's fan comment back up. I agree with him. I think K-State wins it. I think it's – I don't know if you want to call it. I don't know what kind of game you want to call it. An upset or what? I don't know. Iowa State has been a team that to me has been on the cusp of it for the last couple of seasons, and they have really sneakily been one of the better teams in the Midwest. And I don't think they've gotten – I think they've gotten some credit, but I don't think they've gotten all the credit they deserve. So they're no slouch. I'm not saying that Iowa State is overrated or they're a bad team, but I think Kansas State shows up and wins by 7 to 10 points. It's not going to be a huge win. It's not going to be a game where they run away with it, but give me K-State winning by 7 to 10. I think it's going to be a classic matchup, and I think we're going to see a lot of implications for later in the season, possibly for both of these teams. So I'm going K-State, bro, all the way.
Hey, I do like that pick a lot. I think if Iowa State were to win, I think it hinges on what Rocco Becht does at quarterback. Obviously replacing, 2 receivers that went into second and third round of the NFL draft. It's going to be a pretty tough task. I do like the receiving room, though. I do think he has potential weapons that he can get. I think if Iowa State were to win, they've got to be pretty explosive in the pass game today. Kansas State. If Kansas State wants to pull this one out, I think they need to find explosive plays in the run game. They've got one of the best running backs in the Big 12 in Dylan Edwards. And we saw him last in the bowl game. He had just shy of 200 yards against Rutgers in their bowl game. And he's just an explosive play waiting to happen. Just a couple of keys to watch there. What's Rocco Becht going to do without his 2 top receivers from last year? And can Kansas State establish this run game early against a defense that quite honestly could not stop the run to save themselves last year? I mean, we watched Iowa State in the Big 12 championship, and Cam Scatterboo just ran wild. And ultimately led Arizona State to a blowout win in the Big 12 championship. So there's going to be there's several keys. Can Iowa State stop the run? Can Kansas State force Iowa State to be a one-dimensional team? I don't see it happening. I think Kansas State wins by 7 to 10 points. I do think it's going to be relatively high scoring. Give me Kansas State today 31 to 24. I do think Dylan Edwards is going to have a pretty big game against a defense that is quite suspect against the run. I do think Dylan Edwards puts up like 140, 150 yards on the ground today.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think back to the comment we got about, and you said it too, Iowa State losing too much within the offseason. I do think that too much might be a little bit of a stretch. I think they have enough to have a decently successful 7 to 8 win season. One of their losses, though, is coming today. I really do think Kansas State is going to show up prepared. Like you said, they've got to establish the run game. They've got to establish it early on. Iowa State has had too many little holes and little things where you can blatantly see why they didn't make it to the next step. And them not having the best defense against a run game was a big hole last season. And it'll be curious to see if that continues on. I assume it will, and I'm wondering how many teams will take advantage of that. I'm sure quite a few will watch film and take advantage of that weakness if it's still present.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping that Iowa State worked on their defensive game. Like the last time I think we saw, Iowa State having a decent defense was against Iowa last year. But we all saw how good Iowa's offense was. It was not very good. But still, they made enough plays to, win that game. After that, Iowa State's defense was extremely suspect to the pass game and to the run game. Last November, I went to the Iowa State-Texas Tech game.
That's right.
Iowa State scored with about a minute left in the game and had the lead. All they had to do was, set up, play the ball, and they're out with the win, and we're out partying in Ames. Well, Texas Tech marched right down the field and scored a touchdown to win it with like 10 seconds left. So Iowa State has to figure out that defensive side of the ball. I think they're going to be plenty good enough on the offense. Having Rocco Becht at quarterback is going to be good. He's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the Big 12 this year. But if that defense is not fixed, they could be in a world of hurt, as we get into the middle of the season. So it's going to be an interesting chess match to watch at 11 o'clock today. Moving on to another game today, pretty interesting, sneaky matchup. We got Fresno State going to Kansas. Fresno State has the history of being a really good team in the Mountain West. Really good coaching staff. They have a pretty good roster. Going to Kansas, their first game back in their new stadium now. Newly redesigned stadium. And they've got their quarterback back, and he's fully healthy. What are your early takes on Fresno State, Kansas?
I think Kansas has a big season. I think Kansas, and I don't know if that's a hot take. I wouldn't call it a hot take because, yes, they didn't have the most successful season record-wise last year, but they did have a really nice season. We saw a lot of moments. They really reminded me of that Husker team we saw the season before last, where they had a lot of moments where they were right there. And I mean, even before that, I guess for the Huskers, they had a few seasons where they'd been right there and then lost games or had close games in the first and in the second half. It got out of hand. But Kansas had some really nice wins last year. And so I think Kansas comes in this season, and I think they're going to have a really, really, really solid year. And I think they won 5 last year. I'm giving them a 7 or 8 win season this season. I really think, and their schedule isn't the easiest, but it's also not the hardest. And we saw them beat several teams they're going up against last season that they're going up against this season. I think they're even better. We saw them beat Iowa State last season, and I think Kansas is going to be an even better team. And we just talked about some of Iowa State's weaknesses. That's also the second to last game of the season. So I think by that point, they'll be playing their best football. Obviously, Texas Tech is no slouch. That should be a pretty good game. Missouri should be a good game. And then Fresno State will be a good game. But give me Kansas, because you said it best. I mean, they just got that new stadium done. And I'm because they did have some massive improvement on the stat sheet and on the win-loss column in certain areas last season for both of those. I think they're going to have a certain level of hype also with the new stadium, first game of the season. So I think that Kansas comes out and wins a 2-score ball game. Give me Kansas beating Fresno State. I'm going to go. Let me go 35-21. And I do think that first half is going to be decently, I'm not going to say lower scoring. And then both teams are going to come alive and Kansas pulls away and wins by 2 scores. So give me Kansas winning in their new stadium by 2. What do you got, bro? What are your thoughts?
I like your prediction a lot. I do think Kansas wins by more. The fact that they're going to have Jaden Daniels back is huge. Before he got hurt last year, quite possibly could have been up there in the Heisman running if Kansas had a decent season last year. He got hurt, and it kind of forced Kansas to play their hand with their backup, and it didn't pay off. But toward the end of the season, Daniels came back, and you saw Kansas win 3 out of their last 5 games. The games that Daniels was back: Colorado, BYU, Iowa State, and then Kansas State. They whooped up on Colorado. They beat BYU in a close game, and BYU was a good team last year. And then Iowa State, obviously, who played in the Big 12 championship. I like the pieces that Kansas has on their roster. I like their coaching staff. Give me Kansas today, 38-13. Okay. I do like their defense. I do like their offense, and I think they're going to want to show out in front of their home crowd in their newly revamped stadium.
Agreed. I think there's going to be a certain level of hype, and that skill is there too. It's not like they have a brand new stadium and they're a team that isn't prepared. I think it's going to be a perfect combo, and I think they're going to come out and win. And they very well could win by more and could win by the margin that you're saying. I think Fresno State, like you said, has had many seasons where they've been a pretty decent football team, but I think Kansas is going to have a really solid season. And their schedule, while they do have some marquee matchups, they do not have the toughest schedule, honestly. I do think that Kansas State matchup will be big because obviously number 17, Kansas State, I think, again, their matchup today, these early season matchups really matter. And so by then, maybe they're not ranked 17th. Maybe they're ranked higher. Maybe they're not even ranked. So they've got to keep that momentum going by that time. But that should be a tough game. They've got a couple of ranked matchups back to back. But honestly, Kansas has a very winnable schedule. I really do think they could win 7 or 8 games. I think it's not a stretch to say that. Maybe they even win a few more, but time will tell. All I know is it's going to be exciting to see them in their new stadium, and I think they will definitely get that W in week 0.
100%. Let's break down Kansas's schedule here. Obviously, we got Fresno State tonight. Then they play Wagner next week, so you're talking here starting out 2-0 potentially. They play at Missouri, which Missouri isn't going to be a slouch. Missouri had a pretty decent team, relatively decent team last year. I think that game has potential to be close. But I'm just going to go off the limb and say Kansas loses to Missouri, considering it's on the road. You got West Virginia at home, Cincinnati at home. You can go 2-0 there. You're talking 4-1. They go to UCF. I think UCF is going to be decisively better. I think that one has potential to be a pretty high-scoring game. I do think Frost is going to have a pretty explosive offense down at UCF. I'm going to say Kansas loses a high-scoring game there. They go to number 23 Texas Tech. Texas Tech is one of those teams that could quite arguably be up there in the running for the Big 12 championship this year. I'm going to say they lose to Texas Tech. They play Kansas State. I think Kansas betters Kansas State this year. So you're talking 5-3. Just rattling off this schedule, Oklahoma State is a winnable game. They play at Arizona, at Iowa State, and then Utah is kind of a interesting case because obviously Utah didn't have the year that they wanted last year. They've got pieces. I think they're going to be better too. I think that 8-4, like what you were saying earlier, I think finishing 8-4 for Kansas this year after finishing 5-7 last year, I think it'd be a pretty successful year to kind of get them back on track to what they want to be.
Absolutely.
And then you're looking at, the 2026 season. And Kansas has potential to be, in the running for being in that top 3 or so in the Big 12 next year. So they should be a fun team to watch nonetheless. So it'll be fun following them as the season goes on. Kind of moving on to the week 1 slate just a little bit. We've got some Thursday games. We got some Thursday games next week. I'm going to start off with this one. It's at 8 p.m. Thursday night. We got Miami of Ohio going to Wisconsin. Wisconsin obviously did not have the year that they wanted last year. Nebraska took them out of the running for, the postseason, which there was nothing sweeter to happen in Lincoln than that. Luke Fickell is on the hot seat. And I tell you what, they are playing a sneaky good Miami of Ohio team from the MAC. They had the number 1 defense in the MAC last year, and they rolled a lot of teams in the MAC. Wisconsin has got to find a way to get up early in this one. I think Miami of Ohio has potential to potentially pull a Power 4 upset in Madison. What are your early takes on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with you. I don't think Wisconsin definitely didn't have the
You're
season.
muted.
Oh, I am?
I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm not muted on my end. I'm not on my end. On my end, I'm not muted. So I don't know.
That's weird. I can't hear you at all.
If anyone in the comments can't hear me, please let me know. But on my end, it says I'm good. So, but let me try to do something.
I think we got some technical difficulties.
Yeah, I don't know. I can hear you good. I'm on my end. It says we're good.
You can probably hear me, but I can't hear you at all.
Can you?
That's weird. Bear with us as we're going through some technical difficulties right now. But yeah, Miami of Ohio, I'm just going to start off by rattling off, 4 of the last 5 games last year they won. They beat Colorado State 43-17. They lost to Ohio in a blowout. They beat Bowling Green 28-12, Northern Illinois 20-9, the same Northern Illinois team that beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame. And then they beat Kent State 34-7. They're no slouch. The FPI college football predictors only giving them a 17% chance to win in Madison. I'm not going to be shocked. I'm not going to predict an upset. I do think Wisconsin comes out on top. but uh, I think this game is going to be a lot closer than Wisconsin wants. Uh, I've got Wisconsin winning this one 28-17. But yeah, did you figure out your audio issue?
Again, there's on my end it says there's nothing. Check the chat. Check the chat. Check the private or because I think you need to leave and come back. Here, let me check. Hold on. I can also see if we're good on. Let me.
Can I leave and come back? Let me try.
28 to
Okay.
docked. I'm not gonna get up
Let me see, guys. Sorry about that.
back to what they
I think my audio is fine
It's a
unless you guys
winnable
can't
game.
hear me either. But no one said anything. No one that is watching has said
and
anything.
then you're looking at, the 2026
Miami
Miami of Ohio has potential.
Sorry, guys. I know this is.
I don't know.
Oh no, yeah, you can hear me. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Anyway, sorry. As I was trying to say before, the audio stopped working. I do think that Miami of Ohio beats Wisconsin. You will also notice if you watch this show long enough that I pick a lot of upsets and a lot of teams that are considered the underdog. And it's not just because. Let's see.
There we
How
go.
are we?
Hear you now. What the heck
Can
happened?
you hear me now?
Yeah.
I checked the because then I was like, wait a second. I checked the YouTube I pulled up on my phone and the audio was working. So I don't know. It might have been, I don't know, who knows, but we're good now. I was just saying to the viewers that I like to pick a lot of upsets, and so I'm picking Miami of Ohio to win. Again, I will pick quite a few games. This one is a little more realistic. I will say, like my co-host was saying when he was going through and listing, like they had some big wins. They had a really solid defense. They have a lot of really solid returning players. They have a really good team, but obviously that's not going up against a Big Ten team. And even the worst Big Ten team can be better than quite a few other conference teams. But I don't think that's the case with Wisconsin. Yes, Wisconsin is a decent team year in and year out, but I think Miami of Ohio pulls it off. But I think it is such a close victory. I think give me a 3-point, give me a field goal, which I'm saying this with absolutely zero knowledge of how their kicking team is and how their field goal unit is for Miami of Ohio. So that could be a take that is even crazier now. But give me Miami of Ohio winning by 3, 31-28 in a close game and giving Wisconsin their first L of the season and not their last. I think Wisconsin picks up quite a few L's this year. Anyways, that's my take. That's my pick.
Yeah, I would not be shocked if Miami of Ohio pulled off the upset. And I tell you what, Wisconsin's already a mess, but if Miami of Ohio pulls off the win in week 1, how much hotter Luke Fickle's seat is going to be in Madison because
if they lose, do you think he loses his job during the season, or do you think it's going to take more than
I have a thought. If he loses against Miami of Ohio, I'm not going to be shocked if he gets fired before week 3. Just looking at their schedule for this year, it is absolutely brutal. You're starting off the season against Miami of Ohio in week 1 and Middle Tennessee. Those are your only 2 should be guaranteed wins for the year. You have to go to Tuscaloosa and play Alabama. You play up against Maryland. You go to Michigan, Iowa. You play Iowa at home. You play Ohio State at home. You go to Oregon. You play up against Washington at home. You go to Indiana and then play Illinois and then play at Minnesota. That is a brutal stretch. And if Miami of Ohio goes into Madison week 1 and pulls off that upset, you're talking a 2-10 team potentially.
Yikes.
Talk about losing the locker room potentially after losing to a Miami of Ohio team. Albeit, they're a good football program. Miami of Ohio is a tough football program in the MAC. But yeah, Wisconsin's in a very, very tough spot because even if they win against Miami of Ohio, Middle Tennessee, I have them 4-8 this year.
Same. 5 at best. My ceiling for them is 5 games. That's the most I can give them.
Like, they're going to go to Tuscaloosa and they're going to get blown out.
Easily.
They're going to go they got Maryland, which Maryland could beat Wisconsin at home.
Yeah, they could.
They go to Michigan, which Michigan's going to be better than Wisconsin in almost every facet.
Mm-hmm.
They got Iowa. Iowa's going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
You got Ohio State, last year's national champs. Like, you got Oregon. You got to go to Oregon. I don't know what Wisconsin did to piss off the college football gods to get that schedule. It's something else.
Ridiculous.
I do think Wisconsin wins their first 2 games, though.
Fair.
I do think they beat Miami of Ohio on the 28th. I do think they beat Middle Tennessee on September 6th. But those are the only 2 wins that I'm guaranteeing them right now. And I don't think anything is guaranteed with Wisconsin after what we saw last year. I mean, they finished the season on a 5-game losing streak. They lost to Minnesota. They got killed against Minnesota. This is back-to-back weeks. Got killed against Minnesota, got killed against Nebraska, lost a close game to Oregon, got killed against Iowa, an Iowa team that had no offense whatsoever. And then they got beat pretty handily against Penn State. It almost seems like Nebraska and Wisconsin kind of flipped roles a little bit. Nebraska is on the up. Wisconsin's probably going to be down toward the bottom of the Big Ten this year. So I'm sorry to any Badger fans that may be watching, but they're in for a tough year. But yeah, moving on to the next game. I kind of skipped over this one. So this one is tonight. We got Stanford going to Hawaii. Hawaii is an 2.5-point favorite against Stanford, which honestly shows how far Stanford has kind of fallen as a program. What are your thoughts on Stanford and Hawaii tonight?
I think we see Hawaii get themselves a bowl game, which goes beyond tonight, but it starts tonight. I do think they're the point favorite is accurate. I do think they beat Stanford, which again, yes, does show that Stanford maybe has fallen a little bit, but also maybe has shown that Hawaii has gained a little bit of hype and a little bit of traction. Now, this is coming from someone that watched a game live last year. I went to the UNLV game when I still lived in Hawaii, and they literally dropped back-to-back punts that UNLV recovered on 2 different punts. It was awful. I mean, it was literally back-to-back. It was right in front of me where I was sitting, so I got to see it close up, which their stadium is tiny. It's like a high school stadium, honestly. It was super small. But all that aside, there were some moments that were fun. They had some players on offense. Their defense is pretty shaky, but they had some offensive talent that looked pretty exciting. And now they have a redshirt freshman quarterback that played their last game against New Mexico State, I believe, and has some flashes. So I think they're going to beat. Now, I'm not going to go crazy. They're going to win 6-7 games max. I don't even think they get to 7, but 6 obviously gets you a bowl game. And I do think that they are going to get that number this year. And I think one of their wins is going to come against Stanford. Now, how close is the game? You're going to hear a lot of close scores, at least from me today and maybe from both of us. I don't think it's a game that's going to be a super big win or a super high-scoring game. I don't see it being a very high-scoring game. Give me Hawaii winning 21-17. I think it's going to be that close of a margin. I do think it's going to be a super low-scoring game. And then Hawaii has a really tough week 1 against Arizona. And Arizona, they're pretty mediocre team. They're pretty middle of the pack and have been pretty year in and year out, but they're definitely better than Hawaii. So I do think you're looking at a 1-1 start to the season within those first 2 weeks. But I'm not feeling high on Hawaii. I don't think they're going to be crazy. I will say I've been going into people's TikTok live chats that do sport like college football shows and asking where Hawaii is when they have top 25s, and people have been not appreciative. I've gotten kicked out of a room before asking why Hawaii wasn't in someone's top 25 list. Which again, I'm not that high on them. I think they'll be a 6-win team. But Stanford is one of those wins, and who knows, maybe they beat Stanford, and then maybe they go in and beat Arizona, and we're looking at a team with a little more hype and a little more momentum. I don't see that happening, but you never know. What do you feel, bro? Do you think Hawaii pulls it off, or do you think the Stanford is still a team that can get it done?
I have this thought that this could be probably one of the ugliest played games of the weekend. I don't think either team is going to be particularly good. 5-6 wins tops for both of these teams, very possibly. I think we're going to see a lower scoring game. I don't think Stanford's going to have an offense to stand on. I think their defense is going to be a little better. And then Hawaii might have a little bit of offense. And I think their defense is going to be a little better too. I just find this is going to be a true week 0 game between two kind of middling teams. I got Stanford today. Give me Stanford 17-13. I do think it's going to be quite a bit lower scoring than one might expect.
I don't think, and you know what? Maybe giving them a 20-point, someone breaks 20 is a little bit generous. I do think if someone breaks 20, it's Hawaii, but who knows? Again, I'm with you. These will be six-win teams. And maybe 6 wins is even a little generous for one or both of them. Maybe they'll be 5-win teams. But yeah, it's a true week 0 matchup. But I am happy to see it because maybe one of these teams surprises us and just has an absolute monster game and puts themselves on watch. That can also happen. So I'm not predicting that. I wouldn't put money on that, but you never know.
Right. 100%. It should be an interesting game to watch nonetheless.
Absolutely.
I'll definitely be tuning in tonight.
What time does it start?
It starts at 5 or 6:30.
Nice. Okay. Well, that seems early.
Yeah, starts at 6:30 Central. So definitely will be tuning into that one. Moving on to next week's week 1 slate. Another very interesting game. You got Hugh Freeze at Auburn going to Baylor. Baylor is slated to have a really good team. This year is kind of a make or break year for Hugh Freeze at Auburn. So you got a couple of interesting storylines. This Baylor team, though, they got a really good quarterback and receiver room. Their defense should be better than it was last year. It wasn't great. But if they could find a way to get a few more stops, I think this Baylor team could be in the running to be in the top 4 or 5 in the Big 12 this year. Potentially top 25 team. Auburn, they recruit high pretty well, but they haven't won at a high level since Hugh Freeze took over. Give me your early thoughts on this Auburn-Baylor matchup.
I don't know if this would be considered a hot take. I don't think it would be because, like you said, the proof that Baylor is that team is in – there's quite a few – and there's a lot of proof that they are a team that could have a really good season. Auburn, on the other end, in my opinion, is the exact opposite. Like you said, they recruit pretty high. They haven't won anything in quite a while, and not even just they haven't won anything. This is the same team that dropped games, that has been dropping games pretty consistently to the Georgias, to the Alabamas. They can't beat those high prestige teams in their conference year in and year out for the last like 6 to 8 to 10 plus years. Maybe they've pulled off some victories against those teams along the way, but if you look at the overall record, they've been losing against those conference rivals and just those conference teams pretty handily. Baylor is not one of those teams, obviously. They're not in their conference, but Baylor reminds me they're much closer to an Alabama or a Georgia than Auburn is right now, in my personal opinion, talent-wise, depth-wise, coaching-wise, everything-wise. So I think that Baylor blows them out. Now, blows them out, Auburn's going to put points up on the board. It's not going to be 0 to like 60 something. That's not what I mean. What I mean is it's going to be 42 to 24, or no, 42 to 21. And to me, that is a blowout for a team of Auburn's prestige, because you want to come in and you want to be the exact opposite, because you've been a team that lost to Georgia last season, lost to Alabama, dropped some pretty big games, had some pretty big wins, but it was against no-name teams. Those were and that's what Auburn has been, a team that loses to the big-name teams and then whoops up on the no-name teams or the lower-ranked teams, and then they're just somewhere in the middle. Baylor is a team that is going to come in and explode. They're going to have a really good game. And I think Baylor is a team that we're going to see very potentially in the postseason. So I think Baylor is going to have a really, really good season that's going to continue past just this game. So, yeah, give me 42-21, a Baylor on top.
I like that pick a lot. I mean, this is a Baylor offense last year that averaged just shy of 35 points a game, which had them at 23rd in the country in scoring offense. They were tied for 34th in passing yards, and they had the 42nd rushing offense too. So they were pretty good on offense, averaging about 430 yards a game on offense. Like, this is a really good offense that Baylor has. And I do think they are going to show out today. My only question on their side is their defense. Their defense struggled pretty mightily last year. They gave up 27 points a game. I do think they give up a few points today, but I do think Baylor's going to have too much firepower for Auburn to contend with. Give me Baylor today or next week, 45-28. I do think they find a way to pull off a 17-point win over Auburn, which is just going to light Hugh Freeze's seat a little bit more on fire. It's going to heat it up quite a bit because Hugh Freeze needs to win now. They got some pieces, but nothing has come together for them in the last couple of years. Baylor, I have them as a college football playoff dark horse this year. I think Baylor is going to be really good. I do think they're going to be up there in terms of the conversation for the Big 12 championship this year. I wouldn't be shocked if they had an Arizona State type year from last year.
That's a good comparison.
Because nobody expected Arizona State to do what they did last year. They were picked second to last in the Big 12. And they ended up winning the whole damn thing. And they had Texas on the rope in the CFP last year. They literally had Texas on the ropes. And quite arguably should have probably beaten Texas. But Baylor is going to be a really good and fun team to watch. It's going to be fun to follow them this year. See what they do. I think I placed a bet on them to be in the Big 12 championship this year. It was like a $5 bet. So again, we'll definitely see what happens. I do think Baylor wins handily over Auburn. Moving on, Illinois is coming into the season with their highest ranking in like 20 years. They're ranked number 12 preseason, playing up against Western Illinois. This game, I think, is going to be pretty easy. Illinois is good defensively. They were really good offensively, too. What are your thoughts on Illinois and Western Illinois?
You called it best. I mean, you said it pretty easily. It's going to be an easy game. I don't think Illinois, because they're 12th right now, right? Is that where they're at?
Yeah, right now.
I don't think they're going to keep – I don't think they're going to have quite as successful of a season as they did last year. I do think they're still going to win enough games to get them a bowl game, but handily. They're not going to win just 6 or 7 games. I think they win 8 this year. I think this is one of those 8. I don't think they are a playoff team this next season. I could be completely wrong about that. As of now, obviously, they are in a place where their ranking puts them in a playoff spot, but that is before the season has even begun. This first matchup next week is not going to be what bumps their ranking. I think they beat this team. Because obviously, I mean, you know how it goes. When you're winning by enough, then you can take your guys out and put some second, third string. You can kind of switch it up and flip it up in some of these before conference games. And so they're not going to win like 60-0. It's not going to be a blowout like that. But give me 35-10. That's what I'm gonna go. 35-10. But I can also see the team they're playing score under 7 or under 10. I can see them just getting 1 TD and then calling it good. But I'm gonna be generous. 35-10. Illinois keeps their place and goes into another week looking like a pretty solid team. But again, I don't think they're going to look like as good of a team as last year, even starting now. And I also don't think they'll finish as high as they did last year. I think we're going to see a team that is a little more middle of the pack in the Big Ten and still has a good year, but not a great year. And maybe I could be completely wrong, and time will tell. But they'll win. They're winning week 1. Easy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This game is easy pick. I've got Illinois winning big to next week. I think they pull off a 52-3 type game. Okay. I think Illinois will come out guns blazing on offense because they're going to be able to. And they'll open up week 1 with a big win. Breaking down Illinois' schedule, their schedule actually sets up really nice. You got Western Illinois next week. You got to go to Duke on week 2. You play Western Michigan, you go to Indiana, play USC at home, play at Purdue, play Ohio State at home, play at Washington, play versus Rutgers at home, play Maryland at home, play at Wisconsin and Northwestern. The ceiling is there for 11 wins. I think Illinois finishes 9-3 or 10-2. I do think Illinois finds a way and drops one that they probably shouldn't along the way. But I do think if Illinois finishes 9-3 this year, I think it's going to be pretty successful. It'll be back-to-back 9+ win seasons for the first time in a long time in Champaign. So yeah, I think they'll finish 5th or 6th in the Big Ten standings this year. Which, if you finish, and I was talking to somebody else about this, about the Big Ten standings, if you finish anywhere between 5th and 9th, that still puts you at the potential of having about 9 wins in the Big Ten.
That's true.
Like, that's still a pretty solid year in quite possibly the toughest conference in the country. And yeah, the SEC is going to say that they have the toughest conference. They're the most overrated conference.
That's a hot take.
It is not really a hot take. There are 3 teams in the SEC that deserve to be preseason ranked usually.
You're saying overrated now or overrated in the history of football?
Not overrated in the history of football, but right now.
Right now, okay. That's a little less of a hot take.
You've got 3 teams that are really worthy of being ranked. In my opinion, Tennessee should not be ranked. After what they have lost. Tennessee is likely going to finish in the lower tier of the mid-pack. in the SEC this year.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure. I don't think they have too much in them this year.
We've seen, Auburn, even though they're unranked, they've come into seasons ranked and then they finish unranked. The mid-pack in the Big Ten is comparative to the mid-pack in the SEC. It is very much so comparable. Kentucky is kind of similar to Minnesota. So on and so forth. Like, you see Florida coming into the season ranked number 15 after a 7-win season last year. Because of all the hype on DJ Lagway. DJ Lagway has potential to be good, but he has yet to play a full college football season. And I'm going to take a step away from doing the score predictions right now because this offseason they came out with the top quarterbacks entering, 2025. They had DJ Lagway toward the top. He had 1,500 passing yards last year. Guess where they had Dylan Raiola ranked for Nebraska? They had him ranked 42nd. And he had almost 3,000 passing yards last year. And a 67% completion percentage, which led all true freshman quarterbacks last year. People get on their high horse about the SEC. How tough it is. It is really not that tough outside of 4 or 5 teams in the conference. That's my TED Talk for the day. The SEC hype train kills me, saying that the SEC matters more. Yet the Big Ten, adding Oregon, Washington's going to be good. You've got Ohio State. You got Penn State. You got Michigan. You got USC, who's going to be pretty good. Nebraska has high potential to be really good this year. And we'll talk about Nebraska here in a little bit. Like, I don't know. I think the Big Ten and the SEC are on pretty even fronts now. The SEC has won a lot of national championships. I'm not knocking them. But that's one team. 1 or 2 teams that are competing at the highest level. So it'll be interesting to see where the SEC, finds themselves this year. And they just adopted for next year, they're going to a 9-game conference schedule, which will be good. We're not going to see any more November sleepy games against the Citadel and stuff like that, which will be good. So yeah. I don't think it's very much so a hot take. I do think the SEC is highly overrated going into a preseason. They always find 10 teams in the rankings, even though they probably shouldn't be there. But yeah, it'll be fun to follow them this year and see, what happens. As far as, Illinois goes, I do think Illinois finishes 9 wins. I do think they finish as a top 15 team this year. They're going to be on the outside looking in on the playoff. But I do think they'll be right there. Moving on, we've got, speaking of the SEC, we got Syracuse going up against number 24, Tennessee. Tennessee is one of those teams I don't think should be ranked. Especially after how they ended the season last year. Yeah, it was the eventual national champion Ohio State. But Tennessee looked like they did not belong in that game. They were not on the same playing field as Ohio State. And they lost their quarterback in Nico Iamaleava, who is now at UCLA. Syracuse, they had a really good season with Kyle McCord at the helm at quarterback. But they lost Kyle McCord. So they're breaking in a new quarterback. I do think this game has potential to be closer than people might think. I'd still think Tennessee wins, but I think it's going to be by a 31-24 type score. I do think it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. Right now, Tennessee's a 13.5 point favorite. I think Syracuse covers the 13.5. What are your thoughts on Tennessee-Syracuse?
Well, again, I mean, Tennessee definitely had a underrated, not underrated. That's not the word I was looking for. I don't know. You know, maybe an under. They had way more potential than what they finished with. I can't remember what word I'm looking for. But they were very, 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 very. They had a lot of potential, looked decent, and this has been then a lot of the time during their like early parts of their season. They'll have pretty successful early, like first 3-4 games of the year. They'll look really, really good, and then 5, 6, 7 games in, they'll drop one that maybe no one expected, or towards the end of the season, they'll drop one, or they'll make the playoffs and then play really, really, really poorly. So they're just a team that fizzles out. They've always fizzled out. Now they're 24th. They're not going to be in the postseason this year without a doubt, not just because they're 24th. I mean, we might see some unranked teams right now that could potentially make a big push. Like we saw that happen last year and get close or make it to the postseason. But Tennessee is not going to be one of those teams. They're not going to lose week 1. They're going to beat Syracuse, but we're going to see a lot of the holes and a lot of the things that have lost them games earlier on this season than I think we have in the past. I think they win this Syracuse game. I think they win by 2 scores. I think it's going to be – I don't think it's not going to be a super high scoring game. I honestly think it's going to be a 35-21 type of game. Maybe we'll see one more score from each of them, and it'll be like a 42-28, but I don't think Tennessee gets to 42 points. I think the most I can see them score is 35, and maybe it's a 1 score. Maybe it's a 21-28 or, you know, something along those lines, or a 10-score finish. Or point finish. I'm not sure, but Tennessee wins. But looking at their schedule, they've got a pretty tough schedule because they played number 5 Georgia in their 3rd game of the season in week 3. So we're looking at Syracuse. They win. East Tennessee State, obviously they should handle business in that one. That puts them at 2-0. Georgia, number 5 Georgia, they're not winning that one. That puts them at 2-1. UAB, they should win 3-1. Mississippi State, they should also win. That puts them at 4-1. That's a pretty good start to the season. But then we're looking at Arkansas. To me, that's a loss. That's 4-2. I think Arkansas handles business. Alabama, that's another loss. That's 4-3. Kentucky, they should be able to beat. That's 5-3. Oklahoma, another loss, 5-4. New Mexico State, they should obviously win that one, putting them at 6-4. But then Florida and Vanderbilt, I think, are 2 losses. That gives them, 6 wins? I think they're a 6-7 win team this year. Truly, I do believe that. They could beat Vanderbilt, possibly, but I don't see them beating many of the teams they're playing right now that are ranked, like a Florida, which, yes, you talked about how the SEC, and I do agree. I would say they're definitely even with the Big Ten now. I wouldn't say – I guess you could call them overrated because people still give them such a big leg over the Big Ten. But I would say that they're definitely even with the Big Ten. And Florida, I don't think is going to be a postseason team. I really don't. But I think they'll remain in the top 25. I do think they could be a 23-25 by the end of this. And maybe they fall out. So that's a team that I don't think Tennessee can beat. Oklahoma, I don't think Tennessee can beat. Arkansas obviously isn't ranked, but Arkansas I think will be a sneaky team this year and could have some pretty big wins. And I think Tennessee will be one of those wins. So Tennessee wins their first game, but to me they're only winning 6 or 7.
Yeah, I have them as a 6 or 7 win ball club too. Tennessee's lost a lot.
Yeah.
They lost a lot of production on that defense. The defense was really good last year for the most part, outside of that Ohio State game. Their offense was pretty good too. They had the number 9 ranked rushing offense in the country. Their passing offense wasn't great. They were ranked 77th, but anytime you're averaging over 200 yards passing and 200 yards rushing, your offense is pretty good. Well, they're breaking in a new quarterback this year. They lost some of the key weapons from last year. This is not the same Tennessee team, obviously, because Tennessee came into last year pretty highly ranked. So I guess, the voters saw that, Tennessee lost a lot, so we're going to rank him at 24. In my opinion, Tennessee should have started the season unranked. In my opinion, preseason rankings shouldn't, even exist. Rankings shouldn't come out until week 6 or 7 until you see how a team is doing.
I like that. I really like. So you don't think there should be any rankings?
I don't think there should be any preseason rankings whatsoever.
I love it, bro. Let's get this petition started now because I also hate preseason.
Because I think if you do away with the preseason rankings, I think it's going to take a lot of the bias away.
Yeah, 100% agree. We gotta push this, bro. This is something I've felt for the last few seasons heavily.
Yeah, I don't think anybody should be ranked until midway through the season. So you're talking week 6, week 7, to get the first rankings out.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm 100% here for it, and I agree with your Tennessee 6-7 wins. I mean, week 3. You have 2 games here against Syracuse and then ETSU, which you should beat Syracuse, you should be ETSU. What are you going to learn about your team in those games before you play against Georgia?
True.
You're not Syracuse is a Power 4 team. But Syracuse is likely going to finish bottom of the pack in the ACC this year. They're not going to be a good team. You play Georgia at home. Yeah, that stadium is going to be ruckus. Knoxville is a tough place to play.
Yeah, no, it is.
But Georgia is probably going to be playing for a national championship, or at least in the running for a national championship this year.
100%.
You then have to play UAB. UAB is probably a pretty easy dub. You go to Mississippi State, and this may be a little bit of a hot take. Mississippi State is quite possibly a dark horse for me in the SEC.
Okay, wow.
I think they're going to be quite a bit better this year. I think they could be an 8-win ball club this year, and I think they're going to find a way to win a game that they probably shouldn't. And I'll pull up Mississippi State's schedule here. Because I do think they have potential to, get some pretty key wins. And it all starts really in week 2. They play number 11 Arizona State at home on September 6th. They play Southern Miss week 1. They should beat Southern Miss. They could beat number 11 Arizona State. Arizona State has some question marks. They're losing one of the top running backs in the country in Cam Scatterboo. That is some big shoes to fill, considering that Cam Scatterboo accounted for half of the offensive production last year.
Yeah, no, he did.
They play Alcorn State, and then they play Northern Illinois. There is potential there. Mississippi State can start 4-0 before playing Tennessee at home. And then they got to go to College Station and play Texas A&M. They got to go to Florida. And then they have number 1 Texas at home. Their schedule kind of sets up, it's tough, but their schedule sets up pretty good to at least get some momentum. Get some momentum going before you play some of those big games. They finished the season playing at Arkansas, Georgia at home, at Missouri, and then against Ole Miss at home. Mississippi State is a dark horse to me in the SEC. I do think they finish in the top half.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I can maybe see a top half finish. They have a decently tough schedule, but also maybe they're that team this season. It'll be interesting. I don't know. We'll have to check back in. We'll have to check back in on that throughout the season.
They're gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
And I do like what they did with their roster. They had some pretty good transfer pieces come in. So yeah, they're gonna be an interesting team. Speaking of interesting teams, with teams that lost quite a bit. Got Colorado playing up against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is going to be a sneaky team in the SEC this year. Or ACC, excuse me. They are going to be a very sneaky team. Colorado lost Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. What are your takes on this Georgia Tech Colorado game week 1? This has a potential to be a very, very sneaky, good week 1 matchup.
I think this will be one of the best week 1 matchups. Honestly, I really think it's going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be exciting. And my hot take that I'm going to throw in now, which maybe isn't a hot take, because honestly, Colorado wasn't incredible when they had Shedeur and Travis. They were better than they'd been in the pre-Sanders era, but they still weren't anything special like a playoff team or a top. They didn't remain ranked or anything like that. But I think they'll be better. I think this will be their best season under Coach Dion. It's nothing against Travis Hunter. It's nothing against Shedeur, but I do think as a team entirely, they will be a better team. And I think that will start with a very exciting week 1 win. I think it's going to be a pretty high scoring game. I really do. Oh man, the score is tough because I do think this could be a shootout game that goes back and forth. I don't think we'll see like an OT type of situation, but I think it'll come very, 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 very close to that. I think Colorado wins on a late touchdown. And I think Colorado wins. Give me 42-35. I'm going to play it safe. I actually think the score could be a little bit higher. But I do think, and I also think the score could be closer. I think it could be won by a margin of like 3 points. But either way, I'm taking Colorado. I think the Buffs are going to have a really, really good season. I want to actually pull up. Give me your thoughts on this game while I pull their schedule up, because I want to go over that really quick but what are your thoughts on this first game for Colorado?
I'm not as high on Colorado this year. I am super high on Georgia Tech. I am really high on Georgia Tech. This is a Georgia Tech team that probably should have beaten Georgia last year. That game famously was a classic, and it went to 8 overtimes last year before Georgia ultimately won 44-42. Georgia Tech's schedule sets up very well for them if they can rattle off some wins early on. You got to go to Colorado. You got to play Gardner-Webb, Clemson, Temple, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Duke, Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, Pitt, and then ending the season against Georgia. I think Georgia takes care of Colorado week 1. Colorado is breaking in a brand new quarterback. I do think Colorado is going to have a halfway decent offense. I don't like their defense. Georgia Tech had one of the better offenses, in terms of running the ball last year. They averaged 187 yards on the ground. Their quarterback can run the ball. He is a true dual threat quarterback. I've got Georgia Tech winning this one by 2 scores. Give me Georgia Tech winning this one 42-28 in Boulder. I think Georgia Tech is going to be a team at the end of the season that's going to be in the running for a playoff spot. I like Georgia Tech a lot. They're going to be one of the more fascinating teams to watch this year. I like their quarterback. He is extremely dangerous running the ball. They've got good receivers. Their defense is going to be much improved. Yeah, I'm high on Georgia Tech, man. I'm super high on Georgia Tech.
And that's fair. Like you said, they had some flashes, they had some moments, and they've been building that actually. They've been a team that's kind of been building success the last couple of years and looked better and better. I do think, I mean, like I said, I'm obviously not picking Colorado as like a 42-0, 42-10. It's going to be close. Like I said, it's going to be a score to maybe even a little bit less than just a full 7-point score. But I'm going Colorado, and breaking down Colorado's schedule, they don't have the most difficult schedule. Now, I'm not sitting over here saying they're going to go 10-1. But no. They're going to win their first four. And when I say who their first four are against, maybe you'll agree, maybe you'll disagree. Georgia Tech, obviously, you have them losing to them, but I have them beating them. Then they take on Delaware. That should be a pretty handy victory for Colorado. They should be able to show off their weapons in that game, and we should be able to see more of this new team in that game. Houston, Colorado, it'll be a little bit of a closer game, but I'm still giving Colorado the win. And then Wyoming, Colorado should also be a win. So that puts them at 4-0. Now, BYU, Colorado, I'm not going to talk crazy. I do think BYU is a better program as of now than Colorado. So that gives them their first loss. TCU, Colorado, in my opinion, is better. So we're looking at a 5-1 record right now. Not a bad place to be. Iowa State, like both of us said, they're going to have some struggles this season, but I don't think they're going to struggle enough to lose against Colorado. So I do think they are going to win. So that gives Colorado 2 losses. Utah should be another win for Colorado. Arizona will be a really, really, really close game, but I do think Arizona beats Colorado. So that gives them their 3rd loss. West Virginia, in my opinion, will be a win. Arizona State, I think, will be a win, and then Kansas State will be a loss. So we're looking at a pretty decent season with only 4 losses. I don't remember their record last year, but that does give them a better record than last year, I believe. I don't remember what they finished with, or it gives them around the same. But I do think we will see a Colorado team that looks better than they did last year. Overall, top to bottom, obviously they had someone win the Heisman. Obviously they had some big moments, like highlight moments. But as a team, I think they will be more successful. But time will tell. And I do like your take on Georgia Tech. And I do think even though I have them losing, I still think they will have a 8-9 win season for sure. I think Georgia Tech is definitely on the rise.
Yeah, Georgia Tech is going to be a fun team to watch. They might – I'm obviously a homer. Nebraska is probably going to be a pretty fun team to watch this year too. But Georgia Tech, if I'm going to keep Nebraska out of that conversation, Georgia Tech is going to be my team to watch this year. Yeah. Like I love what they do. I love what they do offensively. They are extremely tough to stop because they kind of mix up the option game quite a bit. They run quite a bit of the option, and they're extremely good at it. So yeah, they're going to be fun to watch. And this Georgia Tech Colorado game is going to be super interesting because Colorado is replacing a lot. Yeah. They're losing a Heisman Trophy winner. They're losing a pretty good quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. They've got some talent still, but I don't know. Can Colorado's defense find a way to stop Georgia Tech's option attack? We'll find out next week. Moving on, speaking of Nebraska ties, we got Jacksonville State playing UCF next week. In Scott Frost's first game back in Orlando. This UCF team is going to be interesting. The big question is, can Scott Frost replicate what he did in his final year at UCF? Can he turn that offense up to a whole other level? And then can that defense make a couple of stops along the way too? I do think UCF has potential to win at a high level. Florida has a high influx of football talent in that state. And a lot of that talent finds its way going to UCF or Florida State. They've got a lot of talent on that team, and I do think this game against Jacksonville State, even though Jacksonville State can sneak up on people.
True.
Jacksonville State is a pretty tough football program.
They're sneaky good.
I do think UCF finds a way and controls this one. I do think this offense, UCF's offense last year was pretty good. They averaged 30.4 points a game. That was good for 49th in the country. They averaged almost 250 rushing yards a game, which was 5th in the country. I do think UCF kind of lights the scoreboard up in week 1. I do think they win. I think they win relatively comfortably. I'm going to say 52-24. I think Jacksonville State finds a way and keeps it close for a little bit, but I think UCF kind of overpowers with their run game. I do think UCF's rush offense is going to be toward the top of the Big 12 this year. Yeah, give me UCF big. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's interesting that Scott Frost went back there. I don't blame him. What I will say is I think he will find a lot of success with UCF, both with the conference they are in and also just that setup. I think is going to be really, really good for him. And I think it's going to be it's a good situation. I don't think it's something where I'm like, why are they getting back together? It's a reconciliation that to me makes quite a bit of sense. I'm really excited for their third game against UNC to see that matchup. That's really exciting to me. That to me is one of the most exciting parts of their season is seeing that week 3 matchup against North Carolina. But how will they do week 1? I think I don't want to say it's going to be a blowout in the sense of because again, like you said, they're playing a team that can be sneaky good. I do think they're going to win, but I'm gonna cap it. I think, you know what? I will match you. I will go 52, but I'm gonna stop it at. I'm gonna give them 17. It's gonna be 52-17. I'll give them a little bit. Maybe they break it to 21. Maybe they get 21, and they're definitely not winning week 1. Definitely see UCF pulling it off for sure.
Oh, yeah, 100%. UCF is going to be an interesting team to watch, too, because at the end of the day, the storyline is, can Scott Frost replicate that magic that he had at UCF before going to Nebraska? And I do think what he wants to do offensively fits more of what UCF wants to do. I don't think Scott Frost's play style fits the Big Ten narrative very well. And it kind of showed. There were games where Nebraska looked quite impressive on offense when Scott Frost was here. I mean, you look at his first year, I mean, they started off 0-6, but they finished the season winning 4 out of their last 5 games or something like that. And they whooped up on Minnesota. They whooped up on Illinois while getting almost 600 yards of offense. So I do think UCF's offense is going to be way more prolific in the pass game. And I do think they're going to be really good in the run game. I think they're going to be a pretty tough offense to stop. So, yeah, they're another fascinating team to watch this year in terms of storylines. I don't want to wish ill will on Scott. I do not. I'm disappointed that his tenure turned out the way it did at Nebraska, though. And I want to keep this on Scott Frost just for a couple of minutes here. I don't know if you watched any of the Big 12 Media Day stuff or saw any of his quotes.
I did.
But he kind of made a backhanded comment toward Nebraska. And he said, he's like, Nebraska was the wrong job. He's like, I wouldn't go anywhere unless I know I could win a national championship. Nebraska had and has all the facilities in the world right now to compete at an extremely high level. Everything was there for him to take advantage of. He could have taken advantage of the facilities, and he had Tom Osborne right there that Tom Osborne could help him out. I mean, Tom Osborne famously won 3 national championships with Nebraska. Like, Tom Osborne knows. He came to Nebraska as, you know, an alum to save this football program after an extremely tough tenure with Mike Riley. Nebraska has everything in the world to compete at a high level. And I'm glad we have a coaching staff now that is utilizing all those resources. So yeah, I'm not knocking Scott or anything. I hope he enjoys life down in Orlando. I'm not wishing ill will on him, but I'm just extremely disappointed on how he treated things here at Nebraska. It seemed like
oh no, sorry. You keep going.
It seemed like he used this as a stop to relive his party days. He couldn't keep off of the bottle, and he just didn't take this job serious enough.
Which I have a take on that. I honestly don't think he ever wanted to come back to Nebraska, and I think he felt pressured because I'm sure there was quite a bit of pull, family, other people that wanted him to do this, and obviously the fan base loved him and thought that was going to be like the next big guy. So there's no excuse. And your take on him wanting to relive his party days, I mean, it sounds like he definitely did that. I've heard rumors of an apartment. I've heard rumors of him I've heard all these rumors, and I hope, which I don't really hope because that would be such a big stain on his coaching career and on Nebraska. I wouldn't mind some sort of, whether it's an official documentary or something someone throws together with some sort of information or more knowledge on that time and what truly went wrong, because there's so much behind the scenes went wrong because we had the facilities, we had the recruits in certain areas, we had even sometimes the games, we were right there. There were so many things that were just off. And so I'd be interested to know just how deep the behind the scenes stuff derailed everything. But I do think there is something to be said for when you're unhappy, you make really poor decisions. And so I do think I'm not giving him a pass because I honestly, right when we hired him, my first ever YouTube video was like a 2-hour video of just me talking of why it was the worst decision ever. And I listed like 12 coaches that I thought were better picks. But I do think there is something to be said for when you're extremely unhappy, you make pretty poor choices. And I think that's part of the level of how far he went down. But there is no excuse. And the comments he made at Media Day pissed me off, regardless of what happened. He made the decision to come back. And so we didn't drag him back to Nebraska, and he made it seem like he had to come back. So I don't know. But I don't wish him ill will either. And I actually do think he will have a lot of success back at UCF.
I'm friends with a lot of former Husker football players that played with Scott back in the 90s, that they were kind of involved within the program when Scott was here. And they have all said the same things that we're all hearing about how he was late to meetings, how he focused too much on drinking and partying with former teammates. Like, there's a lot of truth that's coming out about Scott, you know, from his former teammates. I'm not going to name names, but the things that I'm hearing from the fold kind of line up with everything that I'm hearing from the leadership, you know, at the time at Nebraska. I hope he has a lot of success in Orlando. But he's forever going to have a stain in his coaching tenure coming to Nebraska and doing what he did. 16-31 was his record at Nebraska. The worst win percentage of any Nebraska football head coach in almost 100 years.
It's terrible.
Absolutely terrible. It was the worst stretch of Nebraska football in recent memory. Even Mike Riley finished with a 500 record, for crying out loud.
True. Honestly, Scott Frost made Mike Riley look like Tom Osborne, because honestly, Mike Riley, we did have some decently successful years, some bowl games, some parts of the season where we were ranked under Riley. We never had any of that under Frost.
Famously, 2016 was a Nebraska team that started 7-0 and was ranked in the top 10.
And then we played our first real team
against Ohio State and lost bad.
Hey, but we had a bowl. Imagine having a bowl game that early, like 7. Like that was it was crazy. I remember I went to like 2 or 3 home games in that stretch of time, and it was, bro, those were the days.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. It was 100% great. But yeah.
Yeah, Frost really derailed. That whole time really derailed us more than we already were. So it's good to be out from under that for everybody, including Frost, including us, everybody. It's good.
Now we have a coaching staff now that truly cares about the players and top-notch facilities and we'll talk more on Nebraska here in a few minutes. But yeah, more exciting times in Nebraska coming up for sure. Moving on to our next game. Number 9 LSU going to Clemson for week 1. Talk about a really good week 1 matchup. You got Garrett Nussmeier, the quarterback for LSU. Highly touted player. He's in the early talks for the Heisman this year. Clemson starting off preseason ranked number 4. Clemson's going to have a really good team this year too. What are your early takes on LSU and Clemson?
I think both of these teams are going to be super successful this year. I do think LSU pulls off the week 1 victory, but this is another game that I think is going to be pretty close. I think this is a perfect example of one of those shot for shot back and forth games that goes up until the end. I do not think it's actually going to be the highest scoring game of the weekend. I think both teams will keep each other controlled pretty well on the defensive side, but we do see some holes on the defensive side, and so that could end up in several different scores for honestly both teams. But I think LSU wins it, and I think LSU wins it. Give me LSU 28-24. Again, not the highest scoring game of the weekend. I think both defenses will be on display, and I think Clemson will try to make a late push in the game, but I think LSU holds on and finishes 28-24 and goes 1-0 for the first week. What are your thoughts? And now you're the one that's muted. Unless you actually aren't, and it's on my end, which could be possible.
Yep, I'm muted.
There we go.
We're good. I've got Clemson winning this one.
Ooh, okay. You think it's going to be a big one, like a blowout?
I don't think it's going to be a blowout. The reason why I have Clemson winning this one is Brian Kelly has yet to really win a big game at LSU.
Fair. That's true.
I mean, you look at the games that they played, like Alabama. They got killed against Alabama, and they played Alabama at home.
Yeah, true. They did.
And then they lose to Florida, which Florida wasn't very good last year. They have yet to win the big game. And Brian Kelly famously went to LSU because he felt like he couldn't win a national championship at Notre Dame, which is kind of a crazy thing to say. But Brian Kelly thinks he can win a national championship at LSU, which I think LSU and Notre Dame are kind of on even playing fields in terms of competing at the highest level. I mean, we saw Marcus Freeman last year I think, yeah, last year was his first year as the Notre Dame head coach, and they played for a national championship. So, Brian Kelly, he can't win the big game. I think Clemson's going to be really good. Dabo's got a really good squad. He is finally utilizing the transfer portal the way it should be used. Dabo Swinney, for the longest time, was a coach that preached against the transfer portal. But now he's utilizing it to fill spots, and he got some really good players in the transfer class. I think Clemson wins this one by 2 scores. It's not going to be a blowout, but I think Clemson wins this one 35-21. I think Clemson's going to have a little bit too much firepower for LSU's defense, and I think Clemson's defense is going to be really good. Clemson's defense quite arguably could be the top in the country this year.
Ooh, okay.
They're going to be really good. In fact, I've got Clemson in my Final Four for my playoff. So yeah, give me Clemson 35-21. I think it's going to be a good game for the longest part, but I do think Clemson finds a way to get a couple more stops and finds a way to tack on a couple of scores to kind of pull away from LSU. Moving on to the next game here, we've got Utah against UCLA, starting with a former Pac-12 After Dark game because it's at 10 p.m. Utah should be much improved. UCLA is going to be, I think they're going to be pretty good this year too. What are your takes on Utah and UCLA?
This is going to be a good matchup. I think this will be another close Week 1 game that's going to be exciting to see. I also agree that I think UCLA will be better, but I'm going to give it to Utah. I think Utah is going to have a really good season, and I wouldn't be surprised if they sneak their way into the rankings. How high will that be? I'm not going to say they're going to make it to the postseason because I think that's a bit of a jump right now, but I do think they will have a nice ranking throughout the season, and I think they'll have a pretty good year. So give me Utah beating UCLA. But again, it's not going to be a blowout by any means. I'm going to give Utah 1 score. Give me 35-28. Utah pulls it off.
I've got this one being a extremely close competitive matchup. I've got Utah beating UCLA as well, but 38-35 is the final score that I'm predicting. It's going to be very reminiscent of the Pac-12 After Dark game that we are so accustomed to seeing back in the Pac-12 days. I think it's going to be higher scoring. And I think Utah is going to find a way to win a few more games this year. They kind of had bad injury luck last year. If they can keep the injuries under control, I think Utah has potential to be an 8-win ball club this year. UCLA, I kind of like the way UCLA is starting to build things. I think they're going to be a pretty good team. I've got them as an 8-win ball club as well. I have them finishing 8-4 at the end of the year. But yeah, I think Utah is going to want to make an early statement to begin the year, start their season off on a high note. And we'll see what the Big 12 season, has in store for them this year. They could be a sleepy team in the Big 12 as far as competing for, maybe a potential Big 12 championship spot. So should be a good watch this year. Moving on to our next one, we've got Virginia Tech going to South Carolina. Again, talking about the SEC, getting highly ranked teams, I don't think South Carolina truly deserved to be the 13th ranked team. I think they should be ranked, but I think they should have been ranked like 16th, 17th. I don't think they should be preseason just outside or ranked preseason just outside of a playoff spot. I don't think South Carolina is going to be a playoff team this year. Quite arguably. Virginia Tech Virginia Tech's kind of an interesting case. They finished their season losing 4 out of their last 5 games. What are your takes on this one? I've got South Carolina in this one, but I also do think Virginia Tech is going to be pretty improved this year over last year.
Agreed about them being improved. My thing is this: Virginia Tech is good, not really last year, and they had their moments. They're sneaky good at knocking off ranked teams and beating teams that people think they shouldn't beat. And that's like a historical throughout the last like 10 seasons. We've seen them, even if they don't have a great season overall, they can pull off those upset wins against teams that are highly ranked. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think Virginia Tech beats South Carolina. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I also don't think it's going to be the closest game we have ever seen. I think it's going to be a super close first half. We're going to see them very close going into halftime. Coming out, I think it's going to remain close, but I think Virginia Tech owns the fourth quarter and beats out South Carolina. And give me Virginia Tech pulling away. Give me 35-21. Virginia Tech pulls away and wins by 2 scores. That's my prediction. I think South Carolina, I agree with you that they shouldn't be ranked as high. Obviously, after this loss, they will lose that, and I don't think they will recover. I think they will win 7-8 games, but I don't think they'll recover and regain that traction that they had with obviously a number 13 ranking. So give me Virginia Tech with what we probably would consider an upset win just because South Carolina is ranked 13th, but I think Virginia Tech pulls it off.
Oh, yeah. I think Virginia Tech pulls it off too. I think it's going to be a lot closer and lower scoring too. Over-under is currently set at 49.5. I'm going to hammer the under on this one. Give me Virginia Tech 17-14. I think it's going to be kind of an ugly grind them out game. It's going to be a low scoring, fun defensive game to watch. I think Virginia Tech's going to be better on defense. South Carolina, I think, is going to be a little better on defense too than they were last year. So yeah, give me Virginia Tech by 3 points. Moving on to, I think, our last game in our lineup here. I added this one. I'm not sure if it was in your lineup, but I've got number 6 Notre Dame against number 10 Miami for the Aflac kickoff on the 31st of August. Early season top 10 matchup, one of many top 15 matchups in week 1. Notre Dame famously played for a national championship against Ohio State, ultimately lost in a relatively decently played game. And then Miami. Miami famously has Georgia's former quarterback in Carson Beck. Miami is slated to be pretty good. Notre Dame is going to be really dang good too. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think it's going to be a super, super, super competitive game. I think this might be the best game of week 1. I also can see, I can see this in the Colorado-Georgia Tech game honestly being, in my opinion, the 2 best games of the weekend. There could be a few more that are right up there, but right now this is a marquee game for me. And like you said, Beck, obviously that transfer, and there's a lot of expectation. Miami was really, really, really good, but also was really bad in certain crucial moments last season, and so they're looking to get over the hump. Notre Dame, runners up. I didn't think they were going to be in the national championship last season. I was surprised to see them there, but they played really prestigious football, especially in the postseason. That took them all the way there. I'm going to go with Notre Dame. I'm going to go with Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame may be on a bit of a revenge tour trying to make it back to that natty. I don't think they're going to win the natty. This is obviously before the season has even started. I mean, kickoff is starting soon for the first game, but we haven't even seen kickoff number 1 yet of the season, and I'm already saying I think they're going to go on a natty tour. But I do think they will go on a bit of a tear and be right back in the postseason. But this will be a close game. This will be an exciting game. I don't know. I think give me Notre Dame winning 42-45.
Okay. You got a high-scoring game. High scoring.
I think it's going to be a shootout. I think they're going to go back and forth. They do have, and again, I could also see it going down a score or two possibly, but I think this will be up there with that Colorado Georgia Tech game as just a shootout back and forth. Both teams show their offensive powers, but again, it could be a little bit of a closer or a little bit of a lower scoring game. Either way, though, I'm taking Notre Dame. I don't think Miami has what it takes to knock off the team that almost got it done. What do you think, though? What are your thoughts?
I like Notre Dame as well, but mine's going to be a lower scoring game. 28-24 Notre Dame wins this one. I like Notre Dame's defense a lot. I do think Miami's got some firepower, and they'll make a few plays. That's why I give Miami the 24. But I do think Notre Dame, I like what Notre Dame does on offense. They are a physical, ground them out type of team in terms of running the ball. Yeah, give me Notre Dame by 4, 28-24. Yeah, should be a pretty fun slate to watch. There are a few games that we left out. We'll preview those next week. Let's move on to a Thursday game that we haven't talked about yet. This is going to be kind of our Husker segment. We've got Nebraska taking on Cincinnati at Arrowhead Stadium on 8 p.m. on Thursday night. Cincinnati is kind of an interesting case. They've got a very versatile quarterback who can run the ball. Showed signs of being able to throw the ball too, but their offense wasn't great last year. They averaged yards, but they could not put points on the board. On the other side, you got Nebraska. First full year with Dana Holgorsen as the OC, with a second-year quarterback in Dylan Raiola, who had quite possibly a pretty – he had a solid freshman campaign. He had his ups and downs, but you kind of expect that with a true freshman quarterback. But he still passed for almost 3,000 yards and at almost a 68% clip. And on the defensive side of the ball for Nebraska, they got John Butler as the DC. Going to have a more aggressive defense this year in terms of getting to the quarterback and wreaking havoc in the backfield. I like that a lot. I like Nebraska's defense, and I think Nebraska's offense is going to show out in this one. Cincinnati's defense is not going to be able to keep up with Nebraska. I don't think this game is going to be particularly close. Right now, Nebraska is a 6.5-point favorite. The stadium is going to be filled with Husker red. It's going to be a 90-10 split between Nebraska and Cincinnati fans. It's going to be a home game for Nebraska. I've got Nebraska winning big at Arrowhead Stadium. I think they're going to start off with a statement for week 1. Give me Nebraska 45, Cincinnati 17. I don't think Cincinnati's going to have enough firepower to keep up with Nebraska's offense next week. What are your thoughts?
That's a good pick. Well, first of all, I mean, the original proposed site for the neutral site was Indy, correct?
Yes, it was Indy.
To me, yes, Husker fans will travel anywhere. To me, that feels more neutral than Arrowhead. Arrowhead feels extremely close to Lincoln. Either way, it would have been more tipped in Nebraska's favor, either location. But to me, it feels like this will be a Husker home game, 100%. Which, if it was in Indy, it might have it would have been very tipped in the Huskers' direction because it's usually tipped in the Huskers' direction. Husker fans travel, and there are Husker fans all over the country and all over the world. So Husker fans will travel. But to me, this feels like a home game. I know it's supposed to be a neutral site game. If you ask Travis Kelce of the Chiefs, I mean, he played for Cincinnati, so he's at least going for Cincinnati. That's one person in the area that is, and there's probably a few others. I do think the Huskers will win. Cincinnati will not have enough. I think because Cincinnati has enough firepower to compete, I do think we'll see a very competitive first half. I do think the Huskers will be leading by 7-10 going into halftime, but I do think Cincinnati will compete. I have Cincinnati breaking 20 points, but I have the Huskers winning by. I have the Huskers winning. Give me 38-21. Give me 38-21. I do think Cincinnati breaks 20 points. I do think they score 3 touchdowns, and I do think they look decent, but they're not going to have enough against the Huskers. And I do think we will see a very, very, very solid game one from Raiola because, first of all, this kid is – one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten, regardless of rankings last year or where we finished with our whatever. All that aside, his statistics and his potential, I think he is going to explode onto the scene this year, and we're going to see him play football like we haven't even seen yet. I think we are going, and he already had an extremely great productive season last year. I think we will see him be more consistent. I think we will see everyone step up. And so I think he is going to have an extremely successful game one that's going to put the country on notice a little bit. But I just don't see them pulling away from that 38 points. I don't think they could they break in and score 40? They absolutely could. Could they score less? I don't think so because I just think they seem prepared. From everything I have seen and from looking at the depth chart and who they have ready to go, this Husker team is ready to go. So give me 38-21. I am going to give Cincinnati 3 touchdowns because I do think they have enough firepower to get to that by the end of the game. I think maybe it's like 14-28 or 14-21 going into halftime. And then I'll give Cincinnati 1 more touchdown in the second half. But Huskers are going to take care of business for sure and start the season 1-0.
Yeah, I like this Husker team a lot compared to how the team was built last year. And last year's team wasn't badly built either. They had a couple of good wide receiver transfers last year, but they didn't pan out. And no. Dana Holgorsen ended up getting the most out of Jamal Banks.
Yeah, true.
Holgorsen famously came into last year and was like, hey, if you're not going to block because their blocking on the outside was terrible, you're not going to be on the field. Well, we saw Jamal Banks improve his stock quite a bit. And at times, Isaiah Nayer did as well. But Jamal Banks came out, and he actually performed pretty well toward the end of the year. Well, now, for this season, I really like the receiving room.
Yeah.
The wide receiver room is really good. You've got Dane Key, Isaiah Hunter, Ja'Cory Barney, Jeremiah Jones. You've got some big-time players in that room now. Dane Key led Kentucky in receiving yards last year. He had over 1,000 receiving yards last year for Kentucky. So that's going to be good. The offensive line is potentially going to be a pretty big strength for Nebraska too. I mean, you just look at their depth chart that was released yesterday. The size of these guys. 6'6" left tackle, 6'6" left guard, 6'2" to 6'4" center, 6'5", 6'6" right guard. Their right tackle, Teddy Prohaska, 6'10" and 320 pounds.
Jeez.
They've got massive size up front now to protect Dylan Raiola. They are going to open up holes for Emmett Johnson at running back, too. Running back, I think, is going to be a pretty good position group for Nebraska as well. You've got Emmett Johnson, who, toward the end of the year, performed really well. And then they have a redshirt freshman right behind him, Mekhi Nelson. And Dana Holgerson has been extremely high on this kid since really spring. And he has consistently said this, that Mekhi Nelson is as explosive a runner as he is coached. I think we're going to see Mekhi Nelson in a few games this year. I think Emmett Johnson is going to have a breakthrough year and get over 1,000 yards rushing. I do think so. This isn't going to be a Dana Holgerson offense where they're going to be passing the ball 50 times a game. I could see 20 to 30 times a game. But they're going to be running the ball a good deal more than they showed last year. They threw the ball a lot more than they did run it. And then that in itself is going to show a very much so improved offense. Like, I think this offense has potential to average 35 to 38 points a game. I want to hear your takes on the potential of this offense, because I do think the sky is the limit for this offense to really show out this year.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think they'll be an over 30 point a game production team. I think they'll have some games where they don't hit that, possibly, like maybe a Penn State possibly will be a game where they don't hit that. But I do think, and then maybe they still will. I think we'll see the most offensive production we've seen from them in the last 10 years. I mean, we saw a decent amount of production in like the Amir Abdullah, Kenny Bell days, and we even saw a decent amount of production in the Tommy Armstrong days. Not quite as much, but still some, and they overlapped a little bit. But I would say that's been 10 years. I don't remember what year Armstrong graduated, but that was like 16, 17, wasn't it? So it's running on like 10 years since we had pretty efficient offensive production that also resulted in wins. Because let's talk about, we had an Adrian Martinez, we had some players, which he obviously had some questionable plays, but we had some pieces during the Frost era or the early Matt Rule era or the late Riley era that were productive, but it just didn't result in us winning games. Right. This season, we're going to be productive, and it's going to, or in us scoring touchdowns. We would see players that would be productive, but we just could not score touchdowns or score them when we needed them. This is going to be a Husker team that is the most productive we have seen in the last 10 plus years, both in their offense stats and in their ability to win games because of their offense. So I think it's going to be a really, really big year for this offense. I think we're going to be one of the best offenses in the Big Ten. If everyone stays healthy and everything goes as I think it will, I truly think we could be one of the best offenses in the Big Ten by the end of the season.
Oh, 100%. Breaking down Nebraska's football schedule, before we get to the, Thursday, what is your record prediction for this Nebraska football team?
Well, I mean, it's tough because I don't want to be too unrealistic, but I also feel like it isn't too unrealistic to say this. Obviously, I'm just going to run through it super quick and not given too much thought to it. But Cincinnati's a win, Akron's a win, HCU's a win. Number 14, Michigan, I think is a win. It's a home game. I think we're going to have enough momentum from those first 3 games. I think we're looking at a win. Michigan State's a win. Maryland's a win. I think Minnesota's a sneaky loss, so that's my first loss of the season. But obviously, you're still looking at, what would that be, 5-1. Northwestern's a win. That's 6-1. USC, I think, is going to be a win. I do truly think it's going to be a win. That puts us at 7-1. UCLA win, 8-1. Penn State loss. So that puts us at 8-2, and then Iowa. So I think we win 9. I think we beat Iowa, gets us to 9 games. I think our losses come to Penn State and come to Minnesota.
All right, I've got Nebraska at the 10-win mark. I've got them beating Cincinnati, Akron, Houston Christian. The Michigan game is going to be it'll be a great game, great atmosphere. Michigan's going to be without their head coach. And they're breaking in a freshman quarterback. Let's not forget that. So they could have some growing pains on offense. So I'm going to say they pull out and win against Michigan. That puts them at 4-0. 5-0 after Michigan State. 6-0 after Maryland. 7-0 after Minnesota. I think they're rolling into USC at 8-0. They lose to USC at home. I think that'll be a close game. So that puts them at 8-1. You go to UCLA. I think they beat UCLA. That puts them at 9-1. So they're 9-1 going to Penn State. That Penn State game, all of a sudden, if Nebraska is rolling into that game at 9-1, or hell, if they find a way and beat USC and they're 10-0 going up against Penn State, you're talking a night game on CBS or NBC, and it's probably a whiteout game. So that game, either way, whether it's a one-loss Nebraska team or if they have no losses yet, that's going to have some major conference implications going into it. But I'm going to say Nebraska loses to Penn State in a close game. So I'm just going to say they're 9-2. They beat Iowa at home. I 100% believe that. At least I hope they do, because I think that's the game we're both going to, correct?
Oh, yeah.
So I do think they beat Iowa at home. I don't think Iowa's going to have enough offensive firepower. They're going to be plenty good on defense, but I do think Nebraska makes the plays that they need to, and they beat Iowa at home. So that puts them at 10-2, 7-2 in the conference, probably 3rd or 4th in the Big Ten standings, which would probably have them slated for a playoff spot this year. You're probably talking a top 12 team. This schedule is lined up to be extremely successful. I know we've said that in years past, but we haven't had the staff that we do now. Oh, and need I mention the transfers that Nebraska has gotten? Nebraska has more blue chip players, 4- and 5-star players, than they have over the last 10 years. They have the talent now to win at a very high level. So yeah, I've got them at 10-2 this year. I could see 9 wins too. If they go into Minnesota kind of sleepy, I could see Minnesota kind of biting a chunk out of them. But I do think Nebraska gets revenge against Minnesota.
Yeah, no, it definitely could happen. They need to. They've had too many losses against Minnesota.
Oh yeah, 100%. But yeah, I do like this Nebraska team. Like all the talk has been on Matt Rule and his year 3 jumps, and I do think they make that year 3 jump. And I tell you what, if they win 10 games this year, the 2026 recruiting class is going to take off, and the 2027 recruiting class is going to take off. Because players are going to see potential of winning at a high level here. So speaking of recruiting, the 2027 class has kind of become the storyline for Nebraska as of late. They picked up a five-star safety, five-star athlete out of Omaha Central. And they have a borderline five-star quarterback in Trey Taylor. They are currently ranked with 2 recruits in the 2027 class, the number 7 recruiting class in the country. If Nebraska could find a way and take off this year, there's potential to have 4 5-star players in the 2027 recruiting class committing to Nebraska. And that's coming from one of the commits, Trey Taylor out of Chicago. High-profile quarterback who plays for one of the best 7-on-7 football teams in the country. And they did the Battle at the Boneyard this summer at Lincoln, or in Lincoln. And Trey Taylor was playing with some of his, teammates. And he plays on a 7-on-7 team that's from Miami, Florida. And he's already got a few of those guys looking. One of those guys is a 6'7" tight end. 5-star tight end in the 2027 class. Number 1 overall tight end in the country in 2027. So yeah, things are looking up for Nebraska. Nebraska is going to be pretty good. Their defense is going to be solid. I think their offense is going to be leaps and bounds better than it has been. So yeah, extremely exciting stuff coming out of Lincoln. Moving on to kind of our last thing. You sent me this on Facebook. It's the overrated list.
Yes, sure. Let me pull it up on mine, actually.
Yeah.
And this, so yeah, I was just, whenever we do lineups and shows, I like to look for different, whatever's going on, whatever's been trending or pushing. And this just got posted. I don't remember. It says when it was posted. It wasn't that long ago. This article is brand new, and it's about experts ranking who they think the top 10 most overhyped teams of the last decade are. So we'll just run through them and say if we agree or disagree. Number 1 is Texas A&M. Their 10-year record is 77-48, 1 losing season. Record versus top 25 teams, 17-26, and 0 CFP appearances. One thing I would like to say, the CFP appearances is tough because they just extended the number to more teams. So many teams have missed out on it because for the longest time, the college football playoffs was such a small number of teams. So I don't really even count that one in like what makes them overhyped or not. And I disagree. This is one, 77-48 is one of the better records on this list. And so I for one disagree. Are they as good or have as much hype as they did during like the Johnny Manziel days or during the earlier 2000s or mid 2000s or even some of the 90s? Maybe not, but to me, they're still a football team that's decent year in and year out. And I don't think they've had like, they're going to be a playoff team. They're going to be the best team. To me, they haven't had that type of hype to make them overhyped. So I disagree with number 1. What are your thoughts on the first one on this list?
I don't think they're entirely overrated. Like maybe in preseason rankings they could be because the jury is still out on if they can consistently pull out wins against the Georgias, the Alabamas, even though Texas A&M did beat Alabama. But they're 17-26 against the top 25. 1 losing season, but they're having winning records. So I don't know how one may say they're overrated if they're finishing in the top 25 almost every year.
Exactly. Agreed.
Moving on to number 2. This is another one.
Take this one.
This is another one that I don't entirely agree with because how the hell are they overrated? Because they've been bad for the last 10 years. It's
Just
Nebraska.
reading their stuff is ridiculous that they're even on this list. They're like 2-20 something against top 25 teams.
Like, their 10-year record's 50-69. 31 of those losses came under Scott Frost, famously.
Gotta mention that for sure.
2-28 versus the top 25, 8 losing seasons. Their average recruiting ranking of 24.3. How the hell is Nebraska on the overrated list? Especially when they're not even in the top 25.
And is this ranked in order? Because there is no way they're saying they're the second most overrated. If this is ranked like from 1 to 10 in order, this list, putting them at number 2 is absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Maybe in like an underproductive team, like most underproductive team of the last 10 years, or like that had like whatever, but overhyped. I don't think we did talk about this when I sent you this list and before we went live about how they have, and you mentioned it with Texas A&M, preseason rankings and some of the preseason hype that they did build up under Frost and just in the last 10 years. That's kind of something, but that's not enough because they've not been. How many times in the last 10 years has Nebraska like had a top 25 rank the whole season? They haven't, have they? Like from start to finish,
it's
within.
It's been, I think, since 2012.
Yeah.
It's been quite a long time since Nebraska was started ranked and finished ranked.
And that's all I have to say because I think that's there's certain things that make teams overrated. I don't think Nebraska has any of those like qualities of within the last 10 years. I really, really don't.
I don't think they're underrated. I don't think they're overrated.
Agreed. Agreed. They would not be on an underrated list either, I don't think, at least in my opinion.
Now a team that I could arguably say is overrated is Auburn.
Same.
70-57. They're 15-38 against the top 25. Their average recruiting ranking is 12th in the country. So they're getting talent. But they've still found a way to have 4 losing seasons here in the last 10 years. They're an easy pick for being overrated. Hugh Freeze has to win this year in order to keep his job. I don't think Hugh Freeze is going to win this year. I think Auburn's going to finish with possibly 5 wins.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't think they're going to be very good.
No, I agree. I'm with you. Honestly, these next few teams I can kind of agree with because, yes, I do agree Auburn is overrated. Coming in at 4th, Florida State, I can also agree that this team is a bit overrated for the last 10 years. 71-53 for their 10-year record. 13th is their average recruiting ranking. 5 losing seasons. And then that 10-25 in the last 10 years versus top 25 teams. That's a really poor statistic to have. And then 0 CFP appearances. But again, I don't even know why I'm mentioning that because I'm not really taking that into account for any of these teams, just because it hasn't been that widespread of a number of teams that have been invited. But yeah, I think Florida State is overrated. I think they belong on this list. I think they belong on this list less than Auburn does, but I still think, I mean, that 10-25 arguably puts them on this list more than Auburn, but I don't know. I'm going overrated. What are your thoughts on FSU?
I'm going overrated too. 5 losing seasons in the last 10 years. They haven't sniffed a national championship appearance since Jimbo Fisher was there and they won it with Jameis Winston. Florida State is kind of an easy pick, and we're going to go down the road from Florida State and go to Florida. Florida is 77-50 in the last 10 years, 4 losing seasons, 13-31 against top 25 teams. And yet they find themselves ranked in the top 15 this year after only a 7-win team last year. Like, they're the epitome of overrated. Their average recruiting ranking's 13th in the country. They're getting talent, but they can't win. Now, here's where I'm going to start disagreeing with the list again. Number 6, you got USC. 77-47. They've only had 2 losing seasons, 15-28 against the top 25. USC is still a very much so decent program.
Agreed. Yeah, they don't belong on this list.
Yeah, they don't have a college football playoff appearance, but they're consistently, outside of really last year, more often than not, they're in the top 15 in the country. They're a pretty solid program still.
Agreed. I don't think USC belongs on this list because, I mean, like you said, they are a pretty solid program. They've had 2 losing seasons, but they've remained look at their record. 77-47 is really truly to be called overrated and have a record like that. You're not doing that bad because that's a pretty good place. They had the college football playoff success or even the conference success, not entirely, but they've had moments. And I do agree that they're not on this list. Another team, number 7, I don't know why North Carolina's on this list. They have some like hype now because of, I guess, their Bill Belichick. And we'll talk next episode because we'll do it before their first game. Their first game is on Monday, September 1st against TCU. So I believe we'll have our second show before then. So we'll talk more about him there in that game then. But 10-year record, 68-60. Obviously, their average recruiting ranking isn't that good. Around Nebraska's 24th. 4 losing seasons, 8-18 against top 25 teams. Obviously, the 8-18 isn't good. But to me, where is the hype in for North Carolina? Maybe basketball. If we were talking about basketball, sure, overhyped for the last 10 years. Yeah, we could maybe say North Carolina has had a little bit of overhype the last 10 years. But football, where is the hype in?
The only hype there has been with North Carolina in the last 10 years was with Larry Fedora as their head coach. The Tar Heels started in 2015 they went 11-3. 11-3. And then he ended up finishing 5-18 in his final 2 seasons. Turned to Mack Brown. Mack Brown had 3 top 15 recruiting classes, but they never reached 10 wins. North Carolina is never really in a conversation to competing for a national championship. They haven't been. They had a couple of seasons here where they jump up and they're toward the top in the ACC, but then after that they disappoint. There's no hype around North Carolina. North Carolina is a basketball school. Yeah. All the hype is with their basketball team. So I don't see how they would be on the overrated list. Number 8 in Miami. Like Miami I could in a way kind of see.
Yeah, I can't talk. I also could see as well. They make more sense.
Yeah, Miami makes more sense. I mean, Miami had a good year last year, but they probably should have won a couple of more games last year.
Yeah.
And then Texas. Why the hell is Texas on this list?
I think this is the number one, like for the most successful team. This is the number one biggest head because 80-49, only 3 losing seasons, 25-27 against top 25 teams. And this is the only team on this list. Well, no, excuse me. The next one also has
a college football.
But this has the only team that has 2 and the only team that has 80. I mean, it's blasphemous. It's crazy. It is absolutely. And this is the exact opposite of like with the Huskers where we're like, why are they on this list? Because they haven't been successful. I'm looking at this and like, why have they been on this list? Because they have been successful. I don't see where the overrated is. They have lost some games. What I will say within the last 10 years, the one thing I could see, they've dropped some head-scratching games even during successful years. They've had some games that have been super, super, super like, how did they lose that? And they've had 3 losing seasons. But this makes no sense to me. I cannot understand how they're on this list.
No.
The next one, though, does belong here, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah. Like, Texas is a really good football program.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Sarkisian, yes, he started off slow. He started off 13-12 in his first 2 seasons. You look at where they are now, They're 25-5 in the past 2 years. And Texas is one of the favorites to win a national championship this year. I don't understand. Tennessee, though, on the other hand, I kind of understand why they're on the overrated list, because it seems like every year they're highly ranked.
Yep.
And
they lose several games that they shouldn't.
They lose several games and they shouldn't. They've obviously made that playoff appearance last year. But they got their doors blown off against Ohio State. Not even close. They're under more stable footing with Josh Heupel, though. I will agree that Josh Heupel is a really good head coach for Tennessee.
Agreed. I think they will turn things around, but I don't think it's going to be. I think that I agree with. I mean, don't think they're going to be either ranked or ranked high this season. I do think they will lose their ranking, and I don't think they will get it back. But also, I don't think. Like they belong on this list. I honestly do think that they are a team that this list was honestly made for them. So through this, we agree that Auburn, Florida State, Florida, and Tennessee belong on the list. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
So Nebraska and Texas, two different sides of the coin, but why the hell were either of them on this list, honestly? I cannot make it make sense for both of them, whether it be because one was so successful, one was so not successful. I don't know, but it's okay. These lists usually, we'll look at these lists. We'll make our own lists. You guys know we do top fives and top tens. We didn't have one this time. We will have some sometimes. But whenever we look at these like CBS Sports or even ESPN, whatever, usually we will not agree with quite a bit of it. You know how that goes.
Oh, yeah, 100%. As always, we're going to keep tabs on throughout the season, and there's going to be different storylines that pop up. If you guys have anything you want us to go over, make sure you hit us up in the comments. Make sure you hit us up on our social media as well, on Facebook or Twitter, and we'll see if we can get to all of them. We'll at least try to get to most of them. But yeah, do you have any closing thoughts, on this episode?
Definitely let us know if you guys have any top tens, anything you guys want to see. Well, it looks like we do have one more comment, maybe.
Do top 10 college football quarterbacks next week. Yeah, we can do that.
We can. Yeah, we definitely can. That'll be a fun list to make because there's a lot of good quarterbacks this season.
Oh,
we will make a note of that. And again, if you guys have any ideas throughout the week, I will be posting more TikTok. I was doing a lot of stuff on our TikTok, and then I stopped. I will be doing more on TikTok. We will also be going live on TikTok next episode. I'm going to try to do that because I did go live for the Purple and Gold Zone on TikTok, and that went really well. So we will try to also go live for anyone that wants to watch us on TikTok starting this season. But yeah, let us know if you have anything you want us to talk about, college football related, any teams, conferences. We will literally talk about any of it. Thank you guys so much. It is great to be back, and I can't wait to talk more college football next week.
Yeah, I can't wait either. Enjoy the start of the college football season, guys, and we will see you next.